Hey, what's up guys? So coming at you with a brand new Commander deck tech, and today we're taking a look at the update to my Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, Chandra Tribal deck post Core Set 2021 and the Chandra Spellbook. If you haven't checked out the original, I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can see how the deck has changed since I did that one. If you like the video, remember to give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe to the channel and help me reach that 500 subscriber milestone by the end of the year. Now that out of the way guys, let's jump into it and hopefully you guys do enjoy the profile. Starting things off, we are still playing our commander, which is Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh. She's a 3-drop 2/2 legendary creature human shaman that can, whenever we cast a red spell, we get to untap her. We can tap her to deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, and if she's dealt 3 or more damage this turn, we can flip her by exiling her and returning her to the battlefield transformed. She'll turn into Chandra Roaring Flame, which has a 4 loyalty, and for +1, she'll deal 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. For -2, she'll deal 2 damage to target creature. And for next 7, she'll deal 6 damage to each opponent, and each opponent dealt this way gets an emblem that says at the beginning of the upkeep, this emblem does 3 damage to you. This emblem is attached to your opponent, not you, so if you die, the emblem does stay, and you get to deal damage from beyond the grave. Moving on to the rest of our planeswalkers, first off at 3 CMC, we have Chandra Acolyte of Flame. 4 loyalty, 3 abilities. First ability lets you put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control, the most common ability that you're using for this one. For her second 0, gives you 2/1/1 elemental creature tokens with haste. They get exiled at the end of the turn. Not really going to use that too much. And -2, she'll let you cast an instant or sorcery card with CMC 3 or less from your graveyard. If we put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So definitely going to be using her for her first ability to get the loyalty abilities on your planeswalkers up as quickly as possible. 4 CMC planeswalkers. First off, we have Torch of Defiance and Fire Artisan. Torch of Defiance, both of these costs come in with 4 loyalty. Torch +1, exile top card of your library. You may cast it. If you don't, she deals 2 damage to each opponent. +1, she'll add 2 red. -3, she'll deal 4 damage to each target creature. And for -7, you'll get an emblem that says at the beginning of whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target. Fire Artisan's continuous ability says whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from her, you get to deal that much damage to target opponent or planeswalker. But +1, she'll exile top card of your library until end of turn you may play it this turn. And for next 7, you'll get to exile the top 7 cards of your library, and until the end of turn you may play them. The difference between these two is Torch says you have to cast the card and you have to cast it straight away. So if she does hit a land, you're just going to be able to deal 2 damage, but it's nice she gets to deal damage. Whereas Fire Artisan allows you to play the cards, meaning that if you haven't land dropped for the turn, you get to land drop. Second and third and fourth 4-drop planeswalker we have are Koth the Hammer and Chandra Pyromaster. Koth is only in here because he's kind of like the mono red Nissa. +1 to tap a target mountain you control, becomes a 4/4 elemental until end of turn. Basically, you use it just to get extra uses out of your mountains. For -2, he'll add red to your mana pool for each mountain you control. Can be absolutely ridiculous. Get you a lot of mana you need really, really quickly. And Pyromaster, of course, +1 deals 1 damage to target opponent, 1 damage to creature they control. That creature can't block. That is absolutely irrelevant. We do not use it. For 0, we get to exile top card of the library till end of turn we may play it. We do use that as it gives us nice access to card advantage. And her next 7, if you can pull it off, it's not bad. It exiles the top 10 cards of your library. You can choose an instant or sorcery card to exile this way, copy it 3 times, and you may cast them without paying their mana cost. But as I said, you mostly just use her for a 0 ability. 5 mana planeswalker, we play 1, Chandra Heart of Fire. People who know me will know I'm not the biggest fan of this card, but she's better than Firebrand, so obviously she went in the deck. So she's 5 mana for 5 loyalty, which isn't too bad. For +1, she'll discard your hand, then you get to exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play those cards exiled this way. Now you can hit lands, you can play those lands. For +1, she'll deal 2 damage to any target. So you do have the nice 2 options for the 2/+1s. Her -9 essentially gives you your win con. So if you can get her to her -9, it is pretty good. So search your graveyard and library for any number of red instants or sorcery cards, exile them, shuffle your library, then you may cast them this turn. You get to add 6 red. So go search Mana Geyser and Comet Storm, or reiterate, add the 6 mana you need to help you get those cards and get your infinite red mana. So she's not as bad, I guess, in Commander as a lot of other people would think. I guess in this deck, she's perfectly fine. Maybe in other decks, she might not be as good. But in terms of better, is she better than Firebrand? Yes, that's why we play her. Our 6-drop planeswalkers, we have Flamecaller, Awakened Inferno, and Flames Callous. Flames Callous, obviously from the intro deck, which is having delays, unfortunately, but hopefully get hand on it very, very soon. Flamecaller comes in with 4 loyalty. For +1, she put 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste on the battlefield. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. For 0, you discard all the cards in hand, draw that many +1. If you have 0 cards in hand, you just get to draw 1. For -X, she'll do X damage to each creature. Awakened Inferno can't be countered, so you don't waste 6 mana on having your spell countered. For +2, she'll give each opponent an emblem that says at the beginning of the upkeep, the emblem does 1 damage to you. Again, attaches to your opponent, not to you, so if you die, it sticks around. For neg 3, she'll deal 3 damage to each non-elemental creature token, so a nice board wipe. And for neg X, she'll deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent would die this turn, exile it instead, which is great. Flame's Catalyst is pretty bonkers for an intro deck planeswalker. 6 mana, 5 loyalty. For +1, she'll deal 3 damage to each opponent. In the multiplayer format, that's pretty good, especially if you can copy it. That's 6 damage to each opponent. Doesn't seem like a lot, but on 1 permanent every turn, that's pretty good. For neg 2, she'll let you cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Of course, if it would see sent to the graveyard this turn, exile instead. Doesn't have the same limitation that our 3-drop Chandra has, where it has to be 3 CMC or less. For neg 8, you'll discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Until the end of the turn, you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. Absolutely insane if you can get that ability off. I am looking to get the Fire Cavalier to combo off with that, because that can be absolutely bonkers, as well as wheels. So many cool things you can do with that little combo. Moving on to our Chandra-themed creatures. These don't really fit in any other section other than being related to Chandra. So we have Chandra's Embercat. It's a 2-drop 2/2 mana dork that taps the red. Can only be used to cast a Chandra Planeswalker spell or an elemental spell. Now, can't be used for our commander, but can be used for any of other elementals and our Chandras. We have Chandra's Phoenix, the only Chandra card we have in the deck that's not an elemental. So it has flying, it's a 2/2, and has haste. Whenever an opponent is dealt damage by a red instant sorcery or a red planeswalker control, add from a graveyard to hand. So uses it as a blocker, uses an impulse draw target. If it gets wheeled, it doesn't really matter. It always comes back if we need it, which is really cool. We have Chandra's Spitfire and Chandra's Piling. Piling obviously being from Core Set 2021. And Spitfire being a much older card. Spitfire has flying. Both of these have an ability that says whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage by a source we can, I believe Spitfires are rather to a source we control. They both get extra power. So Spitfire gets +3/+0 till end of turn, and Piling gets +1/+0 and double strike until end of turn. Now this is for each instance of damage. So if they get hit by 2 instances of 1 damage, their abilities trigger twice. So these can get really powerful. And of course, Piling being a 2-drop 1/3 is also a very, very nice deal. Then we have Chandra's Incinerator and Young Pyromancer. Of course, Young Pyromancer casting sorcery, get 1/1 elemental. Incinerator costs X less to cast, but X is the amount of non-combat damage dealt to opponents this turn. So if you have a way to flash it in, if your opponent got dealt down non-combat damage to the opponent's turn, it costs less. Has Trample. Whenever a source we control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage. The Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Doesn't count the emblems that are given to your opponent, but as far as I'm aware, it does count your Torch of Defiance emblems as they are attached to you. Another great thing about the Chandra deck is how we're going to copy our instants and sorceries. First off, we have a new card from Core Set 2021. It's Double Visions. Enchantment, whenever we cast our first instant sorcery spell each turn, we copy that spell and may choose new targets for that copy. Now, we have to be careful. It is the first instant sorcery we cast, so if it's not the one you want to copy, you're going to make sure you do it correctly. It's not a may, it is a mandatory trigger. We also have Increasing Vengeance, Dual Cast the Mage, and Reiterate. All of these will copy target instant or sorcery, but they do have a small kind of benefit on top of that, which is why we play these over other copy spells. So Increasing Vengeance has Flashback for 5, and if we cast Increasing Vengeance from our graveyard, we get to copy the spell that we're copying twice. And of course, we have Passive Lambs as well, so we don't actually have to pay it for its 5, but it's nice we do have that access to its Flashback on itself as well, as opposed to Reverberate, which is just 2 mana. This is just it, but better. Dual Cast the Mage has 3 Flash, we get a body as well as a copy, and Reiterate costs 3, but buy back to 3, so we can copy and we can add it back to a hand after it resolves, so we can use it to make some infinite combo there, which is really, really nice. Planeswalker copy abilities, it's important we can activate our Planeswalker abilities as much as possible because there's so much majorly activation in the deck. So we have Chain Veil, we have Repeated Reverberation, and we have Chandra's Regulator. Of course, I love Chandra's Regulator. You know how much I love this card. Whenever we use Loyalty ability for Chandra, pay 1. If we do, we can copy that spell or ability. Pay 1, discard a mountain or a red card to draw a card. So fantastic card. I wish we could play more of these. Repeated Reverberation, 4 mana, such a flexible card. Where we cast the next instant sorcery spell or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy that spell or ability twice, you may choose new targets for the copy. Comboing these off with our Commander's Ultimate is absolutely devastating, especially if we then get to copy Repeated Reverberation, so we can copy that spell or ability. We can copy our ability 4 times. That can be absolutely game-ending. Even getting this with our Commander has had my opponents scoop. You know, they're going to take 18, they take, like, what is it? They take 18 damage, and then they're going to take 9 in their upkeep. People just scoop to that ability. Chain Veil, of course, if we don't use a Planeswalker ability, we lose 2 life. Pay 4, tap it, each of our Planeswalkers can activate again. It is a Liliana card, / a Garrett card, but it's really good in this deck because we do play a lot of Planeswalkers, and in combination with Regulator can be absolutely devastating. Moving on now to our Global Burn. First off, we have Gather Snipe. Whenever we cast an instant sorcery, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Oath of Chandra deals 3 damage to target creature on enter, and then at the beginning of the end step, if a Planeswalker enters the battlefield under controller's turn, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Probably not going to go off too consistently as opposed to like Planeswalker Super Friends decks where they get the Oaths off like crazy amount of times, but it does have Chandra, it does have nice theme, and does do Global Burn, which is great. We have our two of our main win cons with Comet Storm and Jaya's Immolating Inferno. X red. They deal X damage. The problem with Jaya's Immolating Inferno is it is a legendary sorcery, so we do need a legendary permanent out in the field. Thankfully, we have a lot of Planeswalkers. So it'll deal X damage to up to 3 targets. Comet Storm will deal X damage to target creature or player, and I believe it's any target now because of how it's worded, so it can hit Planeswalkers as well. Multi-kicker for an additional 1, so it'll hit an extra target for every time that we multi-kick it. Absolutely insane cards. If you can find a way to stop them being countered, or you can then copy these as well, it can be absolutely horrific for our opponents to try and get rid of all this stuff really, really quickly. We have Price of Progress, which will do 2 damage to each player, equal to twice the number of non-basic lands that player controls. Can hit us as well, so you have to be careful when you play this one. Blasphemous Act to deal 13 damage to each creature. We don't play a lot of creatures in this deck, and it'll cost 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Another board wipe you can consider playing in the deck is Obliterate. It will destroy your lands. It'll basically, I think it destroys all creatures, lands, and artifacts. Does leave Planeswalkers on the field, and it itself can't be countered. Now, the reason why I don't play it is my playgroups aren't already not the biggest fans of this deck when it goes off, and I don't want them to say you can't play this deck. But Obliterate does work really well in this deck as it doesn't hit Planeswalkers, as opposed to something like Hour of Devastation, which whilst that can hit Planeswalkers, does hit our Chandras. That's why I don't play it. We also have Vandal Blast and Bifrost, which will destroy artifacts. Vandal Blast costs 1 to destroy 1 target artifact you don't control. We can overload it for 5. Bifrost will destroy X target artifacts. And it also has Chandra on it, so it's the main reason to play it over something over like other artifact removal, which you could say is better. Moving on to single target, we have Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast. Counter target spell if it's blue, or destroy target permanent if it's blue. Pyroblast, of course, has Chandra on it. Yes, there will be games where you don't play against people playing blue, then you choose them for your Impulse Draw. You definitely want to be running its 2 cards out of 99. You would be stupid not to run them. People will try and Cyclonic Rift you, and you need to be aware to save your Planeswalkers, because if you lose all your Planeswalkers, it's essentially over. So those cards are very, very nice. Or if someone plays Omniscience, sometimes it's nice to be that red player with 1 red mana up, just threatening that counterspell. The blue players don't always see it coming, especially newer players who don't know cards like that exist. It can be really, really funny. We've got Exquisite Firecraft and Chandra's Triumph for nice Chandra-themed cards. Exquisite Firecraft costs 3, deals 4 damage to any target. Can't be countered if there are 2 or more spell instant sorceries in your graveyard. Chandra's Triumph deals 3 damage to target creature, planeswalker, opponent controls. If you control Chandra, it deals 5. And what's the chance of us controlling a Chandra, right? We have Chaos Warp, of course, best removal spell in mono red. Can use it on your own planeswalkers if they're in trouble, or your own cards in case they're in trouble being exiled, to put them back in your library. Nice defensive card as well as an offensive card. Fantastic card. We have Volt Charge, deal 3 damage to any target, and Proliferate. Believe it's the only access to Proliferate we have in mono red specifically. If there's others I don't know about, let me know in the comments below. And we have Banefire, which deals X damage to any target. If X is 5 or more, it can't be countered, damage can't be prevented. If we can copy this when X is 5 or more and hit multiple players with it, can win us games. So definitely a nice card, even though it does have Sarkhan on it as opposed to Chandra. Still much better in this deck as opposed to a Sarkhan deck, in my personal opinion. More utility cards now. We have Gamble, the red tutor spell. I wish we had more tutor spells in red. But Gamble is a lot better than people give it credit for. Gets any card you want from your deck to your hand. Costs 1. You do have to discard a card at random, but if you play this with a lot of cards in hand, the chance of you hitting the exact card that you search for is low. It can happen, and it has happened. But this card gets me Regulator. This card gets me any card I need to essentially get my combo off and start, winning the game. And you can play that turn 1 as well. That's why it's a fantastic card. You got Insult to Injury. Insult doubles all damage that you would deal this turn and prevents damage from being prevented this turn. Injury you can play if you want. It has Aftermath, so you cast it from your graveyard. Deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. Or Planeswalker, I assume, because of the errata. You never really use the injury effect. You just use the insult effect. Excellent Elixir of Immortality, one of the only ways we have in red to shuffle our graveyard. Pay to tap, sack it, gain 5 life, shuffle it and our graveyard back to our library. We don't have any ways to salvage our Chandras, so yeah, it's definitely something that we want to be having access to. 3 artifacts that have 2 functions, that's why they're in this section. Mag Compass costs 2, we can pay 3, tap it to search our library for a basic land, put it into our hand. At the beginning of our end step, if we control 7 or more lands, we can transform it into a land that types a colorless mana or a Maze of If, which is great. Pyromancer's Goggles cost 5. Taps for red. When we use that red to cast a red instant sorcery spell, copy that spell, and if we do, may choose new targets for that copy. So it's a mana rock and a copier, which is great, and it's got Chandra. Quote from Chandra, which is great. Primal Amulet costs 4. Instant sorceries we cast cost 1 less. When we cast 1, we have to put a charge counter on it. If we have 4 or more, we can flip it into a land that'll tap for any mana. And when we use that mana to cast instant sorcery, we can copy it and choose new targets for that copy. Next up, we have our draw. First off, we have our wheels. Magus of the Wheel, Wheel of Fate, and Reforge the Soul. Wheel, you basically discard, everyone discards a hand, draws 7 cards. Magus is on a creature, we have to pay 2, tap and sack him. Wheel of Fate, we suspend with 4 time counters, and Reforge the Soul costs 5, but we can, of course, pay it for its miracle cost. If it's the first card, we draw. Howling Mine forces each player to draw an extra card during his or her draw phase. I was playing Griffith Ori in an older build, but that helped other players more than it did me because it helped land decks play extra lands. So this is definitely the lesser of the 2 evils. Impulse draw now, we have Faithless Looting, Thrill of Possibility, and Cathartic Reunion. Faithless Looting cost 1, we draw 2, discard 2, flash it back for 3. Thrill of Possibility and Cathartic Reunion, we have to discard cards in addition to their cost, which means if we copy them, we don't copy the casting cost, we copy the effect. So if Thrill of Possibility forces us to discard a card, we get to draw 2. Cathartic, we discard 2, we get to draw 3. And it has Chandra and a mum on it, which is pretty cute. Then we have our ways to play around with the top of our library. We have Vance's Blasting Cannons, Act on Impulse, and Light Up the Stage. Light Up the Stage costs 3. We can Spectacle it for 1 if opponent's dealt combat or opponent's dealt damage. We exile the top 2 cards of our library till end of the turn. Next turn, we may play those cards, include lands. Act on Impulse exiles top 3. We can play them till the end of this turn, unfortunately. It's more cards, it's only till this turn. But these 2 cards are good in the sense if we miss land drops, we can play lands with these. Vance's Blasting Cannons forces us to exile the top card of our library in our upkeep. If it's a non-land card, we may cast it this turn. It can flip, but you will never want to flip it because the land is definitely not worth flipping into. We have Past in Flames, fantastic card in this deck. Gives each instant or sorcery card in our graveyard flashback, and this itself has flashback. Moving on to our lands, we have 21 basic mountains. Of course, we have all the really nice showcase mountains from Core Set 21 because they are in the Chandra border. That's completely optional, but I'm trying to go as full flavor for Chandra as possible. Utility lands, we have Maze of If, takes a creature out of combat that's swinging at us, so yeah, very, very nice. Temple of the False God adds 2 colors to our mana pool, 5 more lands to help us pay for X costs. Khan's Bastion proliferates our Planeswalkers. Myriad, we can tap it to tap stack it to get 2 mountains. Inventor's Fair, great card, thematic for Chandra because it is from Kaladesh. It also allows us to go get artifacts, tutor for artifacts. We have some really cool artifacts we definitely want to get for, including Regulator and Chain Veil, so it can be very useful for us. Reliquary Tower, because one in my playgroup makes me draw a ton of cards, and he's always like, do you have a Reliquary Tower? Well, yes, I do. So if you got someone in your playgroup isn't making you draw a ton of cards, just play a mountain over this. Arcane Lighthouse can remove Hexproof and Shroud from opponent's creatures until end of turn. Forge of Heroes, fantastic with our Flip Commander. Any Flip Commander just loves Forge of Heroes. So you play the commander as a creature, tap it to give them an extra +1/+1 counter. Then when they enter as a planeswalker, you get to give them a loyalty counter. Of course, as our commander re-enters as a planeswalker, we do get to trigger this. We have Valakut, which will enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under our control, if we have 5 more other mountains, Valakut will deal 3 damage to any target. Flamekin Village will enter the battlefield tapped unless we can reveal an elemental. Tap for red, we can pay a red and tap it to give target creature haste until end of turn. And Spellbook Knoll, which is the hideaway land. So we reveal top 4 and exile one of them underneath Spellbook Knoll, and then put those on the bottom. And then we can tap for red, and we can pay red and tap it to play the remove card without paying its mana cost. If an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn. Anyway, guys, that is it for the deck. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Sorry, this is a rather long video. We did have a lot to talk about. Commander decks do take a while to go over. If you did like it, remember to give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Help me reach that 500 subscriber milestone that I am trying to reach by the end of the year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.